Greetings everyone. Today we're going to explore solving quadratics by factoring. So we're continuing to factor. We're just adding one extra element of an equal sign. And when we have an equal sign, therefore we have a solution. So a couple of things we need to know going into solving by factoring. The first and foremost, and this is true for all factoring for the rest of your math career, is greatest common factor. We always need to look to see if we can take something out first before we do any method or any process. Next, we need to decide what method to use based on how the expression looks. For example, if I have 4 terms, I'm going to use grouping. If I have 3 terms, I'm going to use the trinomial factoring, the guess and check we've been working on. Okay. And then what we're going to do that you already know how to do is solving for x. We're going all the way back to the beginning of the year, 2-step equations, solving them for an answer. All right, so we've got 4 examples today. So if you want to pause and write the example down, one of my suggestions to practice factoring would be to factor it and then press play to see if you factored correctly. All right, so let's start by factoring. First thing is, do I have a GCF? Can I take something out? And I can't. Second of all, you want to make sure that it's in standard form, meaning descending exponent order and equals to 0. You want to move everything to one side, okay? If it's not on one side, then it's not in order and you can't truly factor, all right? So no greatest common factor on this one, and it's in standard form, and it's equal to 0. So we can begin our factoring. I have 3 terms. I have my ABC. So I'm going to look at my factors of 1 are 1 and 1. So we're starting off a little bit easier, right? Factors of 14 are 1 and 14 and 2 and 7. Okay, so I'm going to set up my parentheses. I know that I have to have a 1x and a 1x. That's the only way I'll get a 1x squared. I might have to do a little guess and check for the factors of 14. Now because it's 1, I can just look and say, will 1 and 14 get me to 9? Or will 2 and 7 get me to 9? 2 and 7. So when these are 1, our life's easier, right? Okay, sign-wise, if everything's positive, everything's positive. So this is a review, right? Here's the element that we're adding in this lesson. If it's equal to 0, meaning what x values would make everything go away. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to break this up into mini equations way from the first week of Algebra 1. We're going to set the first factor equal to 0, and we're going to set the second factor equal to 0. 1 or 2-step equation. We're just going to solve, you guys. So I'm going to minus 2 over, and it's a 1x, so I don't even need the 1, so there's an answer. And we're going to minus 7 to kick it to the other side, which leaves me with an x and a negative 7. So I have 2 answers, meaning if I plugged those answers into x in the original equation, guess what? I'd get 0, which is awesome because you can check your work. You can know if you're right by plugging them in. So a couple little things about why can we set it equal to 0. Think of 2 numbers, just numbers that multiply to get 0. If my first number is 7, what's my second number? 0, right? If one of the factors that you multiply by is 0, it makes the whole thing 0. So if we think about it, 7 times 0 gets me 0, or some factor times 0 gets me to 0. Or I can flip it around and say 0 times some factor gets me to 0. So that's why we have to solve twice, because it could be one side or the other. If we go back to our properties in pre-algebra, what we're looking at is the zero product property, which says when 2 things multiply to make 0, 1 or both of them have to be 0. So if you think way back, you might just remember that phrase, the zero product property. Okay, let's do a couple more examples, all right? Let's take a look at this example. Your mindset needs to be, first of all, is there a GCF? Ooh, there is. And second of all, is it in standard form? We should maybe think of standard form first, actually, but the order doesn't matter. It's in standard form, and it's equal to 0. Check, check. Ooh, let's work on that GCF. Okay, so GCF, what can I divide out of all three terms? A 2. So if I divide a 2 out, I'm left with a 2x squared plus 11x plus 5. Now, I visited with some of you concerning what your GCF work should look like. That's what it should look like. I should see a division sign. I should see what you're dividing out. Okay? Your work is very important. All right? So GCF is out. Next, I want to try my guess and check, my try-factoring. You'll hear me call it all the time because it's a trinomial. All right, so try-factoring, which means let's start working on our factors. All right, what are my factors of 2? 1 and 2. Factors of 5? 1 and 5. All right, so let's set that up. Everything's positive, so it's going to be positive. We got an x and an x. My factors are 1 and 2, so I have to have a 1 and 2, but then I could have 1 and 5 or 5 and 1. So when I say guess and check, you could even write it out, right? You could write a 1 and a 5, and you could write a 5 and a 1, and you could tell me which one's right. So if I look, my outer's 5, my inner's 2. Is 5 and 2 going to get me to 11? No. Let's look at the bottom one. 1 and 1's 1. 5 and 2 is 10. Is a 1 and a 10 going to get me to 11? Yes, it is. So when I say I need to see your guess and check work, this is what I need to see. I need to see your factors broken down, right? Your little factor trees from elementary school. I need to see your guess and check of checking or multiplying. I need to see multiple factors written out to try, okay? Some of these get complicated, and unless you show work, I have to assume that you got the answer somewhere else, all right? Your guess and check work shows me you're trying and you're thinking and you're guessing, all right? So let's work on our final factored form, all right? I have my GCF of 2, I have my factor of x plus 5, and I have my factor of 2x plus 1. It's still equal to 0. If I set every factor equal to 0, see what happens. Okay, can 2 equal 0? No. Sometimes if your GCF's a letter, it matters, but in this case, the 2 is not part of your final solution. Okay, so let's look here. Oh, this is an easy one, just minus 5. And let's take a look at this last one here. I'm going to minus 1 first. And then I got to divide by 2. Oops, sorry, I'm running out of room there. That means I have x equals negative half. Yes, fractions are okay. All right, you might even get a lot of them, and that's okay. So my solutions are negative 5 and negative half. So when I say I need to see GCF work, that's what I need to see in green. If I say I need to see trinomial factoring work, I need to see what's in red. And now what's new is our solving work in dark blue. I need to see that work. All right, example 3. Take a moment, write it down, and maybe try factoring. So first of all, standard form. Yeah, it looks like it's an order of descending exponents. Is it equal to 0? Yep. And GCF. Do I have GCF? Ooh, I do. So I need to do a little work there, don't I? Show me this work. What do I need to divide out? Well, 3 for sure. And an x. Okay, we haven't had one like this yet. So if I divide out a 3x, I'm left with x squared, a negative 9x, plus an 8. Okay, so there's your GCF work. All right, check. That's good to go. All right, let's do try factoring now. This one started off messy, But now look at your leading coefficient right there. What are your factors of 1? 1 and 1. That makes your life easy. What are the factors of 8 though? 1 and 8, 2 and 4. Okay. So no matter what, I'm going to have a 1x and a 1x, right? Because it's 1, which of these factors will get me to 9? 8 and 1. Okay. We got to play the sign game though. If they multiply to be positive, my options are positive, positive, or negative, negative. How do I get a negative 9? Negative, negative, right? And I'm going to bring that 3x down. So is there a lot of guess and check work to show when it's a 1? No. If the leading coefficient's 1, you show me your factors and you're kind of done, unless you have to guess the signs a little bit. It's when the leading coefficient is something other than 1 that I need to see more work, okay? All right, so now the last step would be to solve. Let's set every factor equal to 0. So I have 3x equals 0. I have x minus 8 equals 0. And I have x minus 1 equals 0. Hey, those are easy. Add 1, done. Add 8, done. Okay, you don't have to show me you're adding 8. Those are super easy. Ooh, divide by 3. What's 0 divided by 3? 0. Look at the GCF matters this time. Okay? If it's just a number, it doesn't matter. If it has a letter, it matters. Look at how many answers I have, you guys. I have 1, 2, 3 answers. Now, let me give you a little tidbit. You don't have to worry about this till Algebra 2, but take a look at the highest exponent. If the highest exponent's 3, I'm going to have 3 answers. If the highest exponent's 2, I'd have 2 answers. And you guys have already been solving. When the highest exponent's 1, you'll have 1 answer. All right, one more, which is going to be so important moving on. All right, so very, very important. Step 1. Is it in standard form? Whoop, nope. It is not. I got to do some work there. Step 2, is it equal to 0? No, I have to do work, right? So both of these. So let's see. Here's more important. Off to the side of your notes, make an asterisk. Keep x squared positive. Write that down really big somewhere, okay? Meaning, if you notice my x squared is positive and it's on the right side, it's going to stay there. You can factor with a negative x squared, but it makes your life more difficult. Okay, you guys? Keep x squared positive. So what do I mean by that? That means I'm going to kick everything else to the other side. All right? So that means in order to set it equal to 0, I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to minus 9x squared, and I'm going to add 8 to both sides. That leaves me with nothing on the left, and x squared minus 9x plus 8 on the right. Okay, now it's in standard form. Now it's equal to 0, and the x squared is positive. All right, so if you're going to come back to this video later, this would be the slide to go back to, because this is the commonly missed step. All right, next step, GCF. Do I have GCF? No, this is a pretty easy try-factoring one. So let's take a look. Step 4, try-factoring. Oops, sorry, kind of sloppy there. Factors of 1? Yes, easy one. Factors of 8? 2, 4. Wait a second. This looks like the previous one, doesn't it? All right, so let's set that up. That should make it easier. X and X. We said 8 and 1. We said minus, minus. And still equal to 0. So now if I solve, x minus 1 equals 0, x minus 8 equals 0, so x equals 1, and x equals 8. The highest exponent's 2, and I have 2 answers. Okay? So the key thing here is we had to rearrange and keep the x squared positive. All right, thanks for bearing with me, guys. This is such an important topic. I can't stress how I need to see work. I can't stress how important this is. You're going to have to know how to factor for geometry, for algebra 2, for college algebra, for pre-calc. Oh my gosh, you guys, it's the one thing that just carries through, okay? So let's just summarize our steps today. If you're a steps person, first thing, standard form, okay? If you need to rearrange it. Second, I'd say, is it equal to 0? If not, it needs to be. And that's where your little side note is, keep x squared positive, okay? Whatever you do, move everything to its side if it needs to be positive. Step 3 was GCF, okay? Make your life easier if you can, you need to. Step 4 is your try-factoring, okay? And if you were to say a step 5, this is what's new, it's what is really, really new. Set equal to 0 and solve, right? Set each factor equal to 0 and solve. Does that make sense? All right, so as always, you guys, make sure you check Google Classroom, please, please, please. I'm trying to keep PowerSchool updated, as always, bear with me. Take a look, what do you need to work on, what are you missing, how's your grade look? As always, 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 if you have questions, let me know, let's visit, let's set up a time to get some help, or if you need some extra resources, anything, just let me know, okay? All right. And here's my little tip of the week. All right, if you're still watching this, and it is 2020, you are watching this at home. So, the first 3 Algebra 1 students to email me their mailing address with the code word in sync might get a little something. Good luck, and until next time, have a good one.